Hey guys, welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Andre Seegers, and this time we're joined by Xander from Nintendo World Report to discuss everything about Luigi's Mansion for Nintendo 3DS. So, let's get started. Alright Xander, so you and I have been playing, or we had played, I don't know if you're still playing it, but we played a lot of Luigi's Mansion for Nintendo 3DS. We both did reviews. I gave it a like it a lot on GameXplain, of course, and I believe you gave it a 7 out of 10 on Nintendo World Report. Is that right?
That sounds correct.
All right, let's go with that.
I should double check that. I think, yeah.
So, I thought it'd be fun for us to get together and discuss our thoughts a little bit more in depth because we both totally like the game. But before we get into what we think of the 3DS version specifically, I want to know what's your history with Luigi's Mansion itself. Had you played the game much before? Did you play it at launch? Tell me about what your thoughts are on the original version of the game, if you played it at all, even.
Yeah, I did not play it at launch. I was too young when it came out, but I did play it quite a bit as a kid. It was one of the few games I had, and because it had a Mario character on the cover, that meant I replayed it at least 50 times a year.
Technically a Luigi character, I think.
A Luigi character, you're right, fair. Yeah, I played it quite a lot, and so going into this review, I told the people who gave it to me that I was like, yeah, I'll have this game beat before the night's over. And for the whole review, I played the whole game 5 times. 3 times on the 3DS, and then I did it twice on the GameCube to kind of compare and contrast. And I have a lot of experience with the game. It's one of my favorites, and I think that I like it so much because it was a game I played a lot as a kid. I've got a lot of nostalgia for it.
Right.
I kind of understand, being a lot older, like there are some cracks that show. It's a lot shorter than I remember it being, and but it's great to see that Luigi's Mansion, the franchise is healthy and it's back. For a while there, I was kind of like, oh, well, it's just going to be another cool one-off that they did, but
right.
It's exciting.
Yeah, I think my history isn't too different from yours, except in my case, I actually got to play Luigi's Mansion early at E3 that year, so I had some idea what to expect going in, and I really enjoyed the demo at E3, even if the final game ended up a bit different in some ways, but that's neither here nor there. But point is, I was excited for the GameCube, and I was excited for Luigi's Mansion, so I knew I had to get it day one. Now, idiot me didn't pre-order it early enough, so I had to go camp outside with my friend right outside Target starting at 6 p.m. the night before.
Wow.
We were the first people out there, first people in line until they opened the following day, at which point I think there were maybe 30 people in line or so. Anyways, I picked up the GameCube, I picked up a whole bunch of launch titles including Luigi's Mansion, Rogue Leader, Super Monkey Ball, and Wave Race. I took it home, I plugged it in, I tried a few games, including Luigi's Mansion, and I wasn't having any fun at all. And I realized that's probably because I was exhausted from staying up all night camping outside. So I went to bed, woke up a few hours later, plugged in Luigi's Mansion again, and thankfully had a much better time. For at least a few hours, because I probably had that game beat within just a few days, if even that, I can't remember exactly. But point is, Luigi's Mansion isn't exactly very long, as you already touched on. In fact, Luigi's Mansion in general was a very weird game. The style of gameplay was different. It's not really a Mario game, despite being in the Mario universe. Mario himself is barely in it. This is despite the fact that it was filling in, essentially, as the Mario launch title for the GameCube. So it kind of had the deck stacked against it, or at least certainly the expectations of the gamers at the time for what Luigi's Mansion could and should be. So I think it's a game that actually, when revisiting, holds up better than it did at the time, when it's divorced of all those expectations. Because I've gone back to it over the years, and I always have a great time with it, and each time I revisit, I feel like I have a better appreciation for what the game was trying to do and what it ultimately did. And that is, I think it's a really novel gameplay experience that offers something that we hadn't normally seen in the Mario universe, not just in terms of gameplay, but also thematically. And yeah, I just, again, appreciate it more now that it's separated from the launch expectations.
Yeah, I'm definitely the same way. I think I played that game so many times that it's almost a game that I can play and just not think about while I just want to be doing stuff. Like a lot of people, like they tend to have those games that they play in between big releases. It's kind of cool down, I guess, if you're playing very often. And it's Luigi's Mansion. It's not like I'm playing just for score, but I will say I've kind of kept track of them. I've enjoyed the game for so long, and I also played it after I played Mario Sunshine. And so, in my mind as a kid, I had a Mario and Luigi game, and they each had like a backpack-esque type of device, and they were going on their own adventures. And so I think even as a kid, I kind of let Mario Sunshine's appeal leak into Luigi's Mansion, because Mario Sunshine had a story, and it was also a 3D Mario game, and then Luigi was a 3D Luigi game, and it was just in a different form. I didn't really notice that that wasn't platforming.
Right.
I thought it was more like a Ghostbusters type thing. And also fishing, I felt like the way you captured the ghost was almost like you were reeling something in. So that was, just kind of a big appeal of it. I know it's not a scary game by today's standards, but I remember thinking it was really scary as a kid, and maybe that's just me.
It's funny because I don't know if I would say the game is scary, but it's definitely like, I don't know if unnerving is quite the right word, but it's definitely atmospheric.
Edge of your seat kind of vibe for me.
It's a really kind of playful horror game, and it's really neat. And Nintendo even incorporated that into the gameplay in a way, with how Luigi's scared when ghosts appear behind him, which not only lends the game a great sense of personality, Luigi especially, but also makes it so you have to really get your bearings and figure out how you want to tackle these ghosts so they don't get scared by other ghosts, which can interrupt your your ability to capture them. So it's really just a really clever idea. Now, to step back again for a moment, though, I wanted to circle back to the Luigi's Mansion being a launch title for the GameCube, because as part of that, it was also a tech demo for the GameCube, both visually with the amazing lighting and particle effects.
I'm not kidding you right now. I would spend maybe 15 minutes just kind of playing with the tornado, just being like, wow, look at the dust. It was the coolest thing.
Not just as a kid for me, I was doing that when I was comparing it to Luigi's Mansion 3DS for the review. I'm like, this is actually really cool. You can make those little dust swirls in the GameCube one, which unfortunately is kind of missing from the 3DS one, and that kind of leads to my point, is that Luigi's Mansion was kind of like a tech demo, both for graphics and as well as controls in a way, too. Taking full advantage of the GameCube controller's dual analog sticks and analog buttons, where you can even vary how strong your poltergust suck was, or the vacuum was. And that's something that's all stuff that had to be tweaked on the 3DS. So I guess my question in a very roundabout way to you is, how did the experience hold up for you in an overall sense on Nintendo 3DS?
I think that the biggest thing I noticed was just the graphics of it. I think that another thing I didn't really notice was just how in-depth they went with the texture changes. Right. I noticed in the paintings that they were a lot more sharper. They were a lot more sharp, and that some of them were just completely different images. Like, there were a lot more pictures of flowers, and then some of the, one of the things I always wanted to do as a kid was see, what do these portrait ghosts look like when they were alive? And they had a few very blurry images, and some of them were a lot sharper in the 3DS. So that I picked on pretty quick. But some of the, like the tiling on the floor, or even the 3D models, like in the chandelier in the parlor, that I didn't really pick up on until someone pointed that out to me, and I was like, oh yeah, that does look like completely different. So I didn't notice those specific things, but I did notice that the mansion itself felt a lot warmer when the rooms were lit up. It almost had like a yellow bloom effect around everything, and I think that also because of the updated textures and models, it made it feel like the rooms themselves felt alive and they had been lived in, whereas in the GameCube, when I went back to it, it felt like they were just a bunch of models that had been made and then thrown into a room to kind of occupy space. And so that was very great for me to come back to. As far as did it hold up? I did really miss the dust particle effect. I liked being able to play with the power and strength of the poltergeist. So there's stuff left to be desired there. But overall, yeah, I really enjoyed it. When I walked away from it, I said, yeah, I really enjoyed this game. It's what I remember it being. I sense, though, if I were to come back and play Luigi's Mansion again, it would be like another, okay, I'm going to play it one time through, and that would probably be on the GameCube. Maybe just because I enjoy holding that controller more than I did the 3DS, because I didn't have a Circle Pro pad, and I suspect that might be the best way to play it, because I would play by tilting and also using the D-pad to try to get the best use of what was the substitute for the analog triggers. So yeah, I really liked it. I walked away pretty impressed with it. But if I were to go back, I would play the GameCube one.
Yeah.
That's not to dismiss the 3DS one by any means. I think it's probably one of the best 3DS games that has been made, just because of how much, I think, care was put into it. I was kind of just expecting it to be just the 3DS game, but having that new gallery and having what were arguably pretty easy achievements, but also having those options to fight the portrait ghosts again and get better time. I would have loved to have had that as a kid, because some of those portrait ghosts were like some of my favorites, and so I would create save files and then copy them right before I would fight them, so that way I kind of have like a small library of portrait ghosts that I could fight again. So yeah, all these fun little perks that they have put in. Nothing huge, but it was a great experience for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think you pretty much hit on the head right there. I think it's a really well done port. I think it's probably about as good as they could have done on the 3DS. Like, I actually did find it hard to go back to the original Luigi's Mansion in a graphical sense after seeing the more vibrant, the more detailed textures in the 3DS version, because I love how the mansion looks now. I think it looks fantastic, and going back to the GameCube one, it just felt like unfinished. It kind of felt more like you were exploring like some serial killer's house or something. Which
it felt like everything had just been placed in the room and not been designed, almost like an interior designer came in and made this mansion.
Exactly. Now, with that being said, I do absolutely miss the better lighting and particle effects on the GameCube.
Agreed.
The particle effects really did help make it feel more, really kind of sell the idea that this is an old mansion you're exploring, even if it technically was new. This just appeared out of nowhere. But they were going with that old feel. It looked cool. It was fun. I like being able to moderate the vacuum's power, even if in a gameplay sense it really had no purpose. But it was fun just to have that ability to kind of like, you could see how much suction you were pulling. Like, if you're pulling on a cloth, you could moderate how close that cloth was getting to you just by depressing the button a little bit lighter or harder. So yeah, those little touches I missed. But on the whole, again, I think it was really well done. I would have preferred, I would have liked it there were better lighting effects there or whatnot, but the lighting effects that are there still look good. Like when the lightning flashes, you can see shadows are still cast on the environment. And the new flashlight actually does look pretty good too, I think. Even if it doesn't cast shadows itself. And then again, gameplay-wise, it still holds up. Gameplay-wise,
absolutely.
It plays almost identically to the original game, minus a few tweaks here or there. Of course, there's a control thing, the control changes. I played mostly on an original 3DS. I also played on a new 3DS just to test how the dual-stick controls worked. And I actually didn't like it. I didn't like how that nub felt to control.
Yeah, the nub was rough.
Yeah, and I actually preferred using just a single control stick, which you can also do on the new 3DS. So that's primarily how I played, and that for the most part worked. I think it's not quite as elegant as the dual analog setup on the GameCube, but there were times where I actually found it to be a little bit better, where you could instantly rotate and light up a ghost, for instance. So yeah, I think on the whole, it's not really like an upgrade or downgrade. It's like a side grade.
I couldn't call it. When I was trying to describe it in the review, I was like, "What is this game? Like, it's not really a remaster. Is it a remake? It's not a demake. It's like it's the same game on the 3DS. Like, what do you call that? Because they put so much effort into this and make it the best that they could be, but it's on the 3DS. Like I don't know what else to tell you. But I agree with you with this. The nub, or I think it's called the C stick on the new 3DS. Right. It didn't feel great to use. I really felt like I was jamming my thumb into it, and there was a sensitivity option, but it felt kind of wonky to use.
Yeah.
So I kind of played how you did. And then also, I agree with the particle effects were really missed, and I didn't really care for. And I guess this is just because of the hardware. The ghosts themselves, they weren't as translucent. They didn't have like that glow coming from out through them. It was more of a glow coming from behind them, and so that was kind of missed.
They don't look quite as otherworldly as they did on the GameCube.
Right. King Boo. It was interesting to see the Dark Moon design show up in there, but that's all right.
Now, beyond the tweaks we've already mentioned, they did actually add some things to the game, such as co-op. They changed the gallery, completely redesigned it. And I love the new gallery, by the way.
Likewise.
I just think it looks better. I like that there's actually some more things you can do in there, including access to the portrait ghosts, as you mentioned. And I even like the little mission they added at the start, where you go find the Game Boy Horrors, Game Boy Game Boy game cartridge, which is a little neat touch.
It's funny to me. It's like, how do they not design it this way from the start? Because in the first one, it's like these two corridors, but the paintings themselves are like positioned in a way so it's kind of made difficult for the player to see what the painting is, and there's no on-screen prompt to tell you can like look at them. You're just gonna have to get lucky and press A in front of them, and it's almost like, why didn't they just do it that way from the beginning? But that's all right.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, what did you think about the 3D, which is something that's also new to the game, as I mentioned? Did you play with the 3D effect turned on for most of the game, and what did you think of it?
Yeah, I played it on, and I thought it looked great. I thought it was very neat to kind of see it realized. I will dabble when the no pun intended here, when the ghosting effect starts showing up, I start to get a little tired of the 3D, and so I will pull it down some and maybe even turn it off. But for the majority of that first playthrough, I did have the 3D turned on, and I quite enjoyed it. It immersed me a lot more. I don't know if you had the same experience that I did, but I was very invested in the 3D, and like a lot of people, sometimes I just am not into it as much. The effects kind of wore off on me, but the idea that like the ghost was not being positioned towards the character, but when Luigi would he would flash the light on their heart and start sucking with the poltergeist. The ghost would kind of get bigger, and it would come towards the camera where the player was looking, and so it almost looked like it was coming out of the 3DS, which I thought was pretty neat. I just felt like there was a lot more depth to that, which the GameCube couldn't do. So that was a neat touch that I noticed. How about you?
I thought it was cool. I don't think I was. I may not have been quite as impressed. Like, I don't think it enhanced my immersion too much, but it was a nice little bonus to it, right? Like it did,
sure.
Especially with the design of the game, with how it's already, it kind of gave it this whole like diorama type feel, almost like like you're exploring a dollhouse, right?
Right, I think that's what they're going for with the original one, so it's just kind of cool that this was realized.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the coolest thing about it, is the fact that this is something that was intended originally, and they can finally realize that dream. And it does kind of help, like, offset, some of the other graphical, downgrades, I think. Yeah, you lost the particle effects, but you gained, 3D, a sense of depth.
I was afraid that they weren't going to do the 3D, and that was, like, one of the parts I enjoyed most about Dark Moon, and so it was very relieving that it was just included as an option,
Yeah, I think it wasn't until we had previews that we actually knew if 3D was in the game or not.
They really pushed it for Samus Metroid. Is that
Samus Returns, right?
Yeah. Okay, and so like they even released a trailer just for the 3DS that you could download, just so you could see it in 3D. It's like, why didn't you do that for Luigi's Mansion? Like, I don't know. That seems like something you would really push in the marketing, but
right.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was cool.
Now, there is one thing about the 3DS version that kind of annoyed me a little bit, which is funny because it's something that was changed to not annoy people, I think. And that's the fact that when you get hit by an enemy now and you drop coins, the coins now stick around for about twice as long as before, which isn't really a huge deal, especially because coins aren't worth that much. But I'm a hoarder. I like collecting as much money as possible. So when I drop money, like, I want to pick it up right away. So in this game, for instance, like on the GameCube version, if you open one of the fake doors and you got slammed into a wall, by the time you recovered from that, the coins would be gone. You had no chance to recover the coins you dropped. In the 3DS version, you have plenty of time, and that's the case for pretty much every encounter in the game, where if you get hit, you can pretty casually pick up the money again. And I felt like it actually ended up making the game a little bit easier overall, simply because on the GameCube one, you had to kind of balance it. Like, if you wanted those coins, you had to focus on those first thing, then, and that left you vulnerable to the ghosts. Is that something that bugged you at all, or did you even notice?
I noticed that the coins were sticking around longer. It didn't really bother me as much, just because I just thought it was a perk. Like, okay, well, I guess it's easier. I was almost, with that being changed, I kind of was expecting other things to be changed that were to be a little more helpful as well, and I was kind of surprised they weren't. My biggest example is, chasing those boos on the third floor between those doors. It's just like, oh my goodness.
Where they go from, like, the fourth area of the game to the first or something? And you have to
it's like, okay, I was just in the armory, and now I'm going to the telephone room, and I'm going to the toy room. It's like, oh my goodness, like, come on. One thing I noticed while playing was that Luigi would, like, when he's aiming the poltergeist towards the boo, it would almost kind of latch on as long as Luigi was close enough, and I thought that was a change, but then when I played the GameCube one, it seemed to be the same case, so I guess there wasn't really any redeeming qualities with catching the boos, so
I don't know. Boos are actually probably the trickiest part about the 3DS's control scheme, at least playing with a single circle pad. Yeah. That's the time I had the most trouble, was just trying to target those boos specifically.
They move around, and I guess with the 3D turned on, that might be... I couldn't tell if it was a hindrance or not, just because with Luigi, you're kind of expecting Luigi to be the closest thing to you, but the boos, they'll come right through that wall past Luigi, and so it could be kind of tough to perfectly aim that, and that tripped me up with the final boss fight as well. And I don't want to spoil that, but I will say the arena did get a little makeover, and I noticed that right away, and I thought that was really cool.
I mean, really, I think the perfect version of Luigi's Mansion would be we combine the Mansion of the 3DS one with everything else from the GameCube one, and that'd be perfect. The controls, the graphics. That'd be like put down Switch. There we go.
Put it on.
Yep.
Ship it. Do it, you cowards.
Yeah, so I guess I kind of want to go back to a larger point here with how the gameplay holds up. Because I think playing through the game again, even though I thought it was a little bit easier because of that one change, even if mildly so, I still thought the game held up really well. But I was really eager to hop into the Hidden Mansion because, as we touched on earlier, that was kind of a new addition for North American gamers. Because even though there was a Hidden Mansion in the North American version as well, it wasn't that much more difficult. They changed a few things, but overall, it was just a slightly modified version of the original.
You know, actually, I think I will admit, I'm just remembering there was one part of the Hidden Mansion that stumped me, and I remember thinking, did they change this for the 3DS? And that was they rearranged the location of Mario's dropped items, and I can't remember if they did that in the Hidden Mansion for the GameCube in America.
Well, I don't know either, because I don't know how much I actually even played the original Hidden Mansion because it didn't seem that appealing to me at the time. But playing the new one here from the European version, which was way harder, and they definitely changed some things, like giving bosses new moves, for instance, or some tweak moves. I had the exact problem. I thought my game glitched. I was looking for, I think it was Mario's glove. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, and so I tweeted it out. I'm like, is this a glitch or am I missing something? And luckily, some people were like, oh, they actually move things around, and it's outside. You have to like clear the backyard area, which I don't think would even occurred to me. But I think I totally forgot you can even clear that area out of ghosts. So.
See, the one I was lost on, and I don't remember if it was his shoe or if it was his glove, but it was hidden in the twins' room, and it was in their desk, and I was like, that's just not a place I would expect to look for one of Mario's items when it was usually in that chest.
Right.
So, that was an interesting one. And I guess, looking back, I guess I appreciate that, because it was something new and different for me, but... Yeah, and in the moment I was like, this is weird. I don't know what to do right now.
I really like how much harder it is, especially for one like who found the game a little bit easier on 3DS, and also as one who's played the game, like what, probably close to 10 times now, honestly. Like it's
definitely.
I'm so used to it. Like it doesn't pose much of a challenge these days. The Hidden Mansion does. By the second room, I was down to freaking 4 HP. I'm like, how is that possible? Yeah.
Oh man. I guess those blue twirler ghosts, they'll mess you up pretty good because they're hit range.
Yeah, they are. It might have been the third room. Second or third room, I was down to 4 HP. I'm like, Jesus, this is. I think it took me by surprise. I had to like really kick up my skill level.
You have to bust out your amiibos. So you could...
No, that was my rule. I would not use any amiibo. I tested out the amiibo. I cannot use amiibo. However, I will admit that there were times where I would just exit back to the lab and come back, and I get full health that way.
That's just using an amiibo, but without using the amiibo.
I mean, the thing is, if I know I'm gonna die at some point, I'm just saving myself the aggravation. Because this actually does get to one of my complaints about the game, which is something I don't focus on, or that didn't bother me too much in the main game, because I wasn't too concerned about dying. I didn't die at all, in fact, during my first playthrough of the main game. But playing the Hidden Mansion, I was dying a lot. And what is frustrating is the fact that there's nowhere to save in that game except that Toad, and all three of them, I believe, are all in the first area or two. Which means if you're later in the game, like if you're on the balcony or anywhere in the third or fourth level, you have to backtrack all the way to the bottom. Or you can also use a mirror if you can find one, but those are hard to find in the latter part of the game as well.
Right.
But also once you save, you gotta go all the way back up, or if you die, you gotta work your way all the way back to the beginning. And
so there's a. Go ahead, finish. I'm sorry.
I just wish there'd been like a shortcut or something, or I wish I had found, or throw a Toad up there or something. I don't know.
If they had put one door, and I've been thinking this even before they announced the 3DS version. If you in that very first room of the mansion where you meet Toad and there's a chandelier and everything, if you go up those stairs and before going into any of the doors, you go all the way to the right. Yep. Yeah, if they were to put a door right there, that would save so much extra time in the later half of the game because it takes you to a much later half of the mansion. And I was just kind of shocked that, like, okay, you're going to let the coins sit around a little longer, but you're not going to make a simple shortcut like that. I don't know. It's just, I don't think it's making the game easier. I think it's just an improvement in terms of gameplay.
Oh, absolutely. They should have introduced that key, or like a key to unlock that new door there. If they had the.
You could have even hit it somewhere, like because there is a shortcut when you beat the first portrait ghost in Area 3, the bodybuilder,
right.
you can get that key to open up that door, and it'll save you having to walk through the backyard.
Yep.
But
side note,
I don't know, man.
I discovered that this time, and I don't know if I knew about it before and forgot, or if I just never found it originally. But I'm like, holy crap! You can unlock this door. This is huge. And I was like ready to make like a whole video about it. I'm like, look, they added this key to unlock this door here. This is massive. Then I went back to the original. I'm like, oh, it was here too. I kept on it all this time. But yeah, so that would have been a similarly useful shortcut had they added that. I agree. That actually would have helped. The Hidden Mansion especially. It's not a huge deal, but playing through it again, I would have definitely appreciated that. And I'm guessing people playing through it the first time probably would as well, because I'm guessing they're probably facing a similar difficulty level as we are in the Hidden Mansion. So
there is like a certain level of like, okay, I want to be able to play this game as it was in the GameCube, which they have, but I also want almost like an improved mode, you know, to like to kind of streamline an already short game. But like they have the new flashlight mode from Dark Moon, and it's like, okay, if you're gonna throw that in for people who have played that game, like why not have the option to have things a little more convenient in these other areas? But it's okay. You know what? It seems like a small nitpick in what otherwise was a great experience for a game.
Speaking of that new flashlight option, the strobe bulb option, did you end up using it much, and which did you end up preferring?
So when I saw the options for it, I went ahead and trained with it just to see which one I would prefer, and I found that I stuck to the original flashlight more, except for in the cases where I was in those really big areas like the roof or the ballroom. That strobe bulb was very helpful in like catching the Shy Guy ghosts all at once, because there's so many of them, and it's kind of fun to be able to have 5 of them being reeled in all at once. Whereas like say something like the laundry room, you have like a pink, what are they called? The purple puncher and the gold ghosts. So, they're coming at you, and that room is so small, it's not enough time for you to charge up and then release, so that way you can catch them. So I would dance between them, but I stuck to the original one more.
Yeah, I tested it out, but I think I just preferred in general how the original game felt. But I'm also kind of like a stickler. I'm kind of a purist, so I generally want to play the game as close as possible to how it was intended to be played originally, which of course was with the original flashlight. But it is kind of cool they added a strobe bulb here, especially because it seems like that's coming back for Luigi's Mansion 3 as well. So it kind of does bring parody to the entire series.
That strobe bulb was helpful in catching the treasure gold ghosts that would appear, and then if you flashed them accidentally, they would disappear forever. Mm-hmm. But the strobe bulb I thought made those fairly easy to catch. You know
what's interesting? I always remember those guys being a huge pain to capture, and this time I didn't have any trouble at all. So I don't know if I'm just less of an idiot these days, which very well could be. Still an idiot, mind you. Or if they actually did make it easier. I think what I think it might be is with the new control scheme, it forced me to turn off my flashlight a lot more often than I did on the GameCube. Okay. Whereas on the GameCube, I would just spin Luigi around to target enemies. I think that would trigger those ghosts, and they would just disappear on me.
You just weren't fast enough, Andre.
Yeah, I guess so.
I will say, and this is maybe like such a me thing. So I really like the original design of King Boo, right? The 2 fangs, the big turquoise tongue. It's fun. And it was like, it's always been a huge bummer that they've used just a generic Boo with a gold crown for all of their spin-off titles. Mm-hmm. And so I was thrilled when they like kind of redesigned him for Dark Moon, and then they at least brought that back for this. So like, it wasn't quite the design like that's the King Boo I know, but like, man, they brought back the Dark Moon King Boo for this game. Maybe they're going to do that for Luigi's Mansion 3, and maybe that's going to be enough for them to use that in all of their other titles. Like, I want to be able to play as that King Boo in Mario Kart, or see that one in Mario Party. I don't know, maybe that's petty, but that would be kind of cool.
What did you think of the new achievements, which are kind of tied into the gallery? Not really. There's a little statue there that you unlock, progressively more impressive-looking statues, and you can check your achievements while there, too.
I thought that they were cool. I kind of kept coming back to them. I found that, like, maybe just because I'm so experienced, I had gotten through cool. Yeah, I just kind of got them right away. Some of the later ones, you had to kind of go out of your way to get, like, catch a certain number of gold mice or catch some of the treasure ghosts.
Right.
I think I'm as high as I want to be right now, because the one I'm at is like collect all of the hidden endings or whatever, and like not a huge spoiler, but like if you collect a certain amount of treasure, you'll be rewarded with something at the end of the game, and there's a variable amount of that thing, and one of the achievements is to get all of them, and I'm kind of like
7 of them, right? 7
I
different...
was going to say, so that would mean you have to play the game at least 7 or 8 times.
Hey, you're almost halfway there then, so...
yeah. Maybe I'll come back in like 6 months or so and do a follow-up.
I mean, I really like Luigi's Mansion. I don't think I like it that much to play it 6, 7, 8 times in a row, so...
Yeah, it's too much Luigi's Mansion. That's like playing Mario Party like with 50 turns, but like 4 times in a row. Yeah, by yourself.
It'd be a nightmare.
No, thank you.
No, I thought the achievements were fine. I'm not a huge fan of achievements as a like a universal like idea that developers have to implement, but I'm fine with them like when the developer wants to and does something cool with them. Here, I thought, they were just fine. Like, they're there if you want a little extra bonus. In my case, as you said, like I ended up just getting most of them naturally anyway. There were the one I had to really go back for was a tutorial one where it's like, oh, you actually have to capture all the ghosts. But I was just trying to get through it quickly. I'm like, I know how this works.
Andre.
I didn't even bother. I was just flashing the ghosts making them disappear.
I got them on the first try.
Oh wow, aren't you special?
Yeah, the achievements were cool. I think that sometimes they could be neat if they are left a little ambiguous in title, and then you can like kind of be like, oh, what's that talking about? And then you kind of find something new. This is just like the tip of my tongue like idea, but like if Breath of the Wild, for instance, if it had like an achievement that says check out the cursed dragon or something, and then like you eventually were like, wait, I've played through this whole game, what do you mean a cursed dragon? And then you kind of remember, oh, there's a certain character somewhere that you need to meet, and you're like, oh, that could be kind of cool. But again, with Luigi's Mansion, they were pretty easy to get through.
What did you think of the co-op mode, or were you able to test it much?
I was. I only had one copy of the game, so I played through the boss fights and the portrait ghosts with a friend.
Because that's the only thing you can do with a single copy of the game, right?
Yes, if you have 2 copies, you can play through the whole game, but I only had the one. It was cool, but also, like, I'm never, ever going to do that again. The load times were pushing, like, 40 seconds in between everything.
I did a quick test myself, and it took forever. For just really a boss battle,
Yeah, just for the boss fights. And I guess it was cool. Again, like, it's neat that option was in there. I'm an advocate for that, but it was rough, man. And also the frame rate was pretty slow. So... yeah. All in all, like, I was cool with it, but I also didn't use it that much, so it's kind of hard for me to say. I can't imagine playing the whole game with that. I would honestly wonder, like, how much load time there would be in between each area,
Well, I'm guessing, if you have both cartridges, there probably won't be any loading time, so...
Oh, okay, alright.
There shouldn't be, at least, but, I do feel like the main game definitely wasn't designed with co-op in mind, and it would probably be way too easy with 2 people. But I haven't tried it myself. I do think though there could be value with it in the Hidden Mansion, which is way more difficult. So I wish I'd been able to test that out. I wasn't able to, and that's kind of the biggest problem with it is, as an adult especially, it's hard to find someone else who has a 3DS and Luigi's Mansion on 3DS.
It would have been cool if I could have done that online. The Scare Scraper in Dark Moon, that was a thing, and that worked fine. It had its own problems, but it worked fine. Yep. That would have been cool if you could do that with Luigi's Mansion as well. I found that it made catching the portrait ghosts and the bosses, if you wanted to get a gold frame, say that's something you struggle with, then that makes it incredibly easier because you're essentially having twice as much suction on them, and so it's a lot faster to drain their HP. But all in all, it's I can't really advocate for it. I do wonder if Luigi is going to make an appearance in Luigi's Mansion 3 because the entrance of the character and then the way that his send-off happens just seemed a little ambiguous to me, but maybe that was just Nintendo being cheeky.
It is interesting how, I guess this is a very slight spoiler, so if you don't want to spoiler, skip ahead probably a minute. But this is so minor, I think.
It is.
Yeah, but yeah, when you beat the game, it does say something about along the lines of like, hey, try doing it again with a second player with Luigi or something. So I wonder, does anything change if you do? I would think we would have heard about by now if there's like something big, but maybe no one's played through the whole game in co-op yet.
That's been my fear. I was like, well, if GameXplain and NWR are the only ones that did video reviews, maybe the interest in doing co-op Luigi's Mansion on the 3DS in the year 2018 is going to be hard to find.
Like, what if there's like an amazing teaser for Luigi's Mansion 3 or something?
I know, that's what I've been thinking, but maybe I'm just Maybe it's just going to be EGAD saying something like, "Wow, good job! Now Luigi's yours for another adventure," or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. But the way they like introduced the character was like EGAD from the future saying, "Hey, I need you to test out this invention for my Luigi." So it's almost like, okay, so does that mean like this is this weird entrance of the character so that way you can use him in like, I don't know, a 2-player mode in Luigi's Mansion 3? I don't know. Maybe they could do like something with like split Joy-Cons or something, but...
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be really cool if they actually designed the Luigi's Mansion game with co-op in mind from the get-go. Like, that could be a really neat idea. Particularly, as you mentioned, on Switch, where you have 2 controllers built in, so...
All those rooms in the Luigi's Mansion 3 trailer were pretty big, so maybe they are designing it around that.
Good point.
I don't know.
Good point. We'll see. So, are there? So I guess overall, clearly, we're both pretty happy with the port. You know, I think it sounds like we agree they did some things better. Some things, we wish they'd been able to bring back from the GameCube, but we understand why they had to make those changes. I'm just curious if there's anything else you wished or had hoped that they might have changed or added to the game.
This is like pie in the sky, but I think some like new content would have been fun. Like I'm with you on that. Like there's a level of purity you want to have and play the game as it was, but like I don't know. I think it would have been cool to like do more portrait ghosts or another boss fight or something like that. That was an idea they kind of dropped for Dark Moon that I really wish they would bring back, because that was like a fun personality aspect that I really connected with in the first one. And so to see them come back in some way with all new artwork for their portrait paintings in all 3 frames, I thought that was all super cool. So I just kind of wish there was a little more of that. I know that there's been like rumors and in the beta for like a safari ghost and also a chef ghost.
Right.
And if you were to look at the menus of the portrait ghosts, there are 2 that are kind of just weirdly not there. So that would have been cool. But, all in all, I think it was fine.
Yeah, when I posted a video of, before the game came out, I posted a video tour of the new gallery. And people kept asking, hey, why are there more portraits here? Like, what's the deal with that? Are there more portrait ghosts in the game now? Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, there aren't. And I think that would have been really cool. Like, bring back some of those beta ghosts, as you mentioned, that were planned for the game but weren't able to be added. Particularly, Maybe that's how they get tied in that shortcut, right? Like, maybe that's where you get the key to this door. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Overall, I'm very happy with this port. Like, usually I'm one. Like, I'm pretty particular about how my ports are, how they're done. Ocarina of Time, I thought was an example of a great one by the same company, whereas Majora's Mask, I had some issues with that. With Luigi's Mansion, while there's some things, again, I wish I wish it had been able to bring the full, like, graphical experience over. It's close enough, and the changes that it did make, I think, are largely for the better, that I have no hesitation, like, recommending people, like, hey, play the 3DS one. Like, if you haven't played Luigi's Mansion, pick it up on 3DS. It's probably not worth buying a GameCube just for. If you have a GameCube, try and play that one, but otherwise, you're fine with the 3DS. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think you're right in saying that this Luigi's Mansion port is much more closer in line to the Ocarina of Time for the 3DS game, whereas the Majora's Mask game had a lot more of a... It's essentially a different game because of how much they change with that.
It kind of is, yeah. Definitely like a variant on the main game.
Yeah, it is. That's a good way of putting it, a variant of the game. And I guess maybe having the hidden mansion is enough, but maybe not, just because they rearranged some of the items and the ghosts are a lot harder. And you were at 4 HP by the 3rd room. But
I should never mention it.
I know. I'm gonna hold that over you now. No, I'm just kidding.
There was actually, real quick, speaking of the Hidden Mansion, there was one thing in the original PAL version that wasn't carried over to the American one, and that is the Hidden Mansion was mirrored. So the entire thing, like, instead of like every room would be to the right, originally would be to the left, or vice versa.
That'd be weird.
Yeah, wouldn't that be weird?
That would honestly make the trap doors that like squash
my god.
Luigi. That would mess me up.
But they still screw with me every now and then. Like
really?
I'm pretty good now. But
I think I just memorized the mansion. It almost feels small to me now. But
yeah, you can also just pretty easily like tell. Like if you look, there's like clues as to which door is real or which isn't. Like the fake doors don't have the carpet going up to them, for instance. But yeah, you're right. That actually might have been like a fun little twist on it. Like how the fake doors are actually a problem again.
The having the Game Boy Horror be the entire 3DS was pretty cool. I liked seeing the.
Did you try pressing the buttons on the touchscreen too?
Yeah. I was like, oh man, look, it's moving around and it's scanning things. Like it's almost like Metroid Prime right now.
Yeah, it kind of is like a full Metroid Prime scanner.
Like, Luigi's Mansion 3 is actually Metroid Prime 4. Everyone.
It's actually a first-person shooter. That'd be amazing.
I guess they have that Luigi's Mansion arcade game, so
that's true. I actually played that. So
oh, did you? Okay,
yeah, it's all right.
It's all right.
It's basically Dark Moon, but in first person, as you said. So yeah,
interesting. Okay, yeah, but it was a good game. Good game.
So any final thoughts, Xander, you want to get out there about Luigi's Mansion on 3DS? Anything else we haven't touched on here, or any final parting thoughts you want to leave us with?
So one thing I noticed, this is super small, and maybe people don't know this, but when I went back to play the GameCube one, and I was in the gallery, apparently you can access the map in the of EGAD's lab while in the gallery, and it shows you which room is the gallery, which one is the training room, and which one is like the menu of the lab. I thought that was kind of cool.
You have to go in the first person to see that, though, right?
Yeah. You go to, you go into your Game Boy Horror and like check it out, and it's that 3D map was not in the 3DS one because it's on the bottom screen at all times. That was like oddly handy. I remember being like, "Oh, they're putting this in the 3DS. What's the gimmick? It's on the bottom screen." And then like the narrator said, "You also have a map on the bottom screen," and I was like, "Yep, there it is." But honestly, it was pretty handy because it would show you like what room has the key to go to next or which room, because like that order I have never really memorized. There's this weird fork in the road that happens in Area 3 where you have to go to 2 different portrait ghosts if you want, and so that was kind of convenient to look back on.
Yeah, but I'm glad you brought up the 3DS or the map functionality, because I actually totally forgot about that, and I thought that was a really good addition. Like usually, I mean, it was never really much of a problem to check the map in the GameCube one, but it was just a little bit nicer to have constant access to it, be able to see exactly where you're going. Even as one like who's well experienced with the game and generally knows the mansion layout pretty well, it's still useful. Like especially when you come back to the game and you have a key and you forgot where that key goes to, you can just easily just check your map right there and see where you need to get off to.
It was also the first time I realized that the rooms were color-coded by area. I never picked up on that as a kid, and I was like, what?
When I was making a video like a year or two ago for GameXplain about Luigi's Mansion, it was only then I realized, wait, why are these rooms different colors? And I finally figured it out too. I'm like, oh, it's based on area. That was like a 10-year mystery for me, so...
Yeah, and they never say that anywhere in the game. It's all based on, I guess, just you figuring it out. I don't think that maybe the keys are color-coded, and that's how they...
Yeah, they are, I think. So, yeah, I guess that was a clue that we missed, but...
Maybe, I guess, I don't know. I enjoyed the game, but it was missing small little things, like when you first walk into the mansion, like there are no big spikes on the door, and that weird, like, radiating... what do you call that? Like, light effect that's happening on the door, like, that's completely gone. They just have, like, the iron gate. And then, like you said, like the particle effects are gone.
Well, you did mention, I mean, speaking of like doors, I guess I did miss the doorknob reflection when Luigi reaches for a doorknob. But then look, it was so impressive in the original game. Like such a small little thing, and it was completely gone here. So
I will say that GameCube cutscene of him opening a door looks so good, and it was sad to see it on the 3DS. But that's fine. Yeah. The doorknob was so smooth, man. It looked real.
That's true. It really did. Like it looked legit good, especially because those scenes apparently run at 60 frames per second, unlike the rest of the game. They're the only scenes in the game that ran at 60 frames per second, so it made it seem even more real, like hyper real at the time. So yeah. All right, I think we're about done here with Luigi's Mansion. Xander, where can people find you at?
So you can find me on Twitter at MorningShark, or you can find me on NintendoWorldReport.com.
And you'll find links to both of those in the description below. And of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for lots more on everything Luigi's Mansion, including hopefully more Luigi's Mansion 3 in the near future, I hope.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And hey, at least Luigi now uses Poltergust in Smash Brothers, which we know about, so that's
that grab move looks cool.
And of course, stay tuned for everything else Nintendo Switch as well. We'll catch you later. Bye.